Hello and welcome again to Charles Kelly Money Tips. Great to see you all today. It's a rainy, damp day here in the UK. It's like obviously winter at the moment, but it hasn't been that cold. So anyway, I hope it's better weather wherever you guys are in the world at the moment. Thanks for tuning in on Facebook Live and to my podcast, which is on Apple and Stitcher. And you can also catch up with my blog on moneytipsdaily.com. Now, I've made that statement there on the heading. You don't make a billion, you take a billion and make things by paying people slave wages they can barely live on. Now, this is what a politician recently said. Now, you might be thinking this is some radical left-wing politician, Jeremy Corbyn or somebody from Venezuela, but actually it's an American congresswoman, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who is a congressman in New York, and she's a young, very bright lady, and she came top cum laude in her university. Comes from fairly humble backgrounds, not that like dirt poor or anything, but her dad had cancer, and they struggled to pay the fees because the insurance ran out. Hi to everyone tuning in there. Hi to Tracy there. Right, hi. And I think that's probably influenced her politics because they nearly lost their house and she had to go out working as a waitress and all this sort of stuff. And she said when she got elected, she was working in a restaurant as a waitress. So obviously this has had a profound effect on her life, and her politics are considered sort of very left-wing and radical in America. Here she would just be a member of maybe the Liberal or the Labour Party, and in most of Europe she would just be considered to be a social democrat. But over there she's like almost a communist because she advocates things like free healthcare for all, free college education, and higher taxes for the very wealthy, and more control over the financial sector. So to me her policies don't seem that radical, but in America she's stirring up quite a storm on the internet. And she won a seat against all the odds. She didn't have much funding, but somehow, so she's very electable and very articulate, looks great, and, puts the message across very well. However, to say that all billionaires make their money on the back of slave labour and slave wages is, I think, very unfair. And if you look just back at history, one of the richest men in industrial America was Henry Ford of Ford's, and he actually started his company and increased wages. He paid, I think it might have been $5 a day or an hour or something. It was some figure that he broke through this barrier and paid higher wages. And of course, people flocked to Detroit to work for Ford's, and that was part of it. He wanted to give everyone a fair wage, a fair system, a good pension, good benefits, and this sort of thing. We've seen this with other companies like Cadbury's in the UK, John Lewis, Marks and Spencer. They give good benefits to people, to their staff. They look after their staff. And in fact, he then built a multi-billion-dollar company and almost single-handedly transformed the American economy from this make things one at a time to the assembly line, division of labour, and he helped to transform the American economy in that way, and he made cars available to the masses. The Model T Ford, as they called it, was available to the masses, and he famously said you can have it in any colour you like as long as it's black, and so on. And so you've got to say that he didn't do this on the back of slave wages. He paid good wages, and he was a remarkable guy. I think he had hardly any schooling, left school very young, and although he was not educated formally, he was a very intelligent guy and built this huge multinational company which still exists today. One of the few companies from that era that's still around. And you go back to more modern times, I don't think you could accuse Bill Gates of paying low wages, when in fact his company actually helped to create many millionaires, maybe thousands of millionaires through, the early people who joined him, through stock options, high pay rate. People are queuing up to work for the likes of, billionaires like the founders of Google and Facebook and Apple, because, they pay fantastic wages and great benefits. They have a whole city inside their companies where you can get your laundry done for free, and you've got free childcare and all this sort of stuff. I mean, these tech companies don't make a lot of money by sort of keeping people down and paying low wages. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are a few billionaires that make their money that way, but I've found that the majority of successful companies, like I've mentioned a few before, Cadbury's and Marks and Spencer's, and these sort of companies have built their reputation and built their businesses on paying good wages and having good staff benefits and being fair to everybody. John Lewis is another one. They have a partnership system where all the employees become partners and get a share of the profits every year. And these things have worked out well for them, and it's good business sense as well, but they wanted to do something more than just make money. And I find that the fly-by-night companies, the companies that try and skim everybody, and they're the companies that don't last. That's my opinion. Now, just as I was researching this, the Sunday Times has this weekend published a new top leading taxpayer list, where they've listed the amount of tax paid by the rich. And every year they have their rich list where they show how much they're worth and that sort of thing. But this is the new thing showing the taxpayers, how much the top taxpayers in the company. They show the top 50 taxpayers. So you can look this up in the UK, the Sunday Times. And top of the list was Stephen Rubin, who is the majority shareholder of JD Sports. They've got thousands of shops all over the country. They employ thousands of people. And he paid £181 million in tax last year. Just him. That's not including what the company paid and how much the company contributes to the government and the Treasury. Another billionaire, Denise Coates, who built up the Bet365 gambling empire from a very small. The company had a small betting shop chain, but she's built it up into an online super company, and she paid £156 million in taxes last year. So that's quite remarkable. And the Sunday Times list demonstrates that the high earners contribute actually hundreds of millions, if not billions, to the UK economy through the people they employ and through their net taxes, and other richest. I mean, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of people think the rich don't pay much tax. You say, oh, the rich should pay more tax, but actually the richest 1% in the UK contribute 28% of all income tax. Did you know that? The richest 1% contribute 28% of all income tax. So if you said to them, if you scared them off, what would happen to that money? Where's that money going to come from? And notable high taxpayers include Sir James Dyson, David and Victoria Beckham. They paid about 12 million. J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, she still lives in the UK. So these people could easily just disappear, but they're here paying their fair share because the taxes are not that high in the UK. They're fair, I think. They're higher than some countries, like Monaco, for instance. But who wouldn't you get bored living in Monaco? You want to live in a country where you've got more than just a tax haven there and sunshine. And other people you could mention is Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Now he's built a massive business called Ineos. He's a billionaire. He's one of the richest men in the country. He had a tax liability of 110 million. Mike Ashley, another guy who owns a sports chain, Sports Direct, heavily criticised all the time, especially by fans of Newcastle Football Club, which he owns. But he paid 30 million in taxes last year. So politicians who go on about the rich paying their fair share, we heard this before the election. I won't mention by who said this. They need to focus on the amount of tax collected, the tax take, rather than the tax rate. Because if you just hike up the tax rate, like the Labour government did in the 70s, people, the top tax rate was at the highest rate was 98%. So on the top slice of your income, you were paying 98%. You weren't paying 98% on the whole lot, but on certain top slices of your income, you were paying up to 98%. And this was in the 1970s. And what did it do? It just drove people away. They had to leave. I remember the Rolling Stones said they were paying so much in tax they were going broke. They had to leave the country. Now they're back here, aren't they? They live here now. Well, I know Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, they live here now. They pay taxes. So, if you just do that, then what are you going to do? You're going to scare people away, and that will discourage investment. that will discourage businessmen to come here and invest and keep their businesses here. London has become a place where a lot of billionaires want to live. Why? Because there's a fair tax system, it's safe, you have rule of law, you have it's a good place to live. Now, many people don't like that, but they also create a lot of employment. There's this trickle-down effect of the people they employ, the money they bring into the country. And a lot of people want to drive them away and tax them on every bit of wealth they've got all over the world. I don't particularly agree with that. And this has got nothing to do with politics, it's to do with common sense. And another recent example, look at when they increased stamp duty on the multi-million pound properties. They put it up so high that what had happened, people stopped buying those properties, and now the tax take, the amount they've collected in tax, has gone down. And this often happens when you make taxes too high, because people just do something to avoid it. They just don't participate anymore. So what's the point? I'm not going to do that anymore. And that often happens. Now, we need taxes to run society, obviously, but they need to be fair and balanced so that people have an incentive to work hard and build businesses and make gains and employ people. If you have employment laws like you do in France, and high taxes on employment, it doesn't encourage people to be employed. It doesn't encourage people to employ companies to employ people. It's very hard when you've got that situation. This is why a lot of French people live here, actually, in London. So countries like Hong Kong and Singapore are model examples of countries that attract businesses and people because they have an attractive tax system, which is fair, which people are happy to pay, and they don't have a need to evade those taxes. So that's my message today, really, is don't be jealous of the rich. Think of them as contributing a lot to society. And this is what I say in my book, Yes, Money Can Buy You Happiness, which is not on Amazon. I say that if your mindset is saying, the rich are all greedy, they're thieves, they don't pay tax, they should be, taxed to the hilt, and let's tax them up there. And the old Labour thing was until the pips squeak. We're going to tax the rich until the pips squeak, and squeeze them dry almost. That was a Labour politician who said that many years ago. But if you have that attitude towards the wealthy and towards successful people, how can you be successful yourself? Because you're automatically saying that these people are bad, so why would you want to be bad as well? So that's what I talk about in the book, to change your mindset, to believe that not all, businessmen are portrayed in the media and on films and that sort of thing as crooks and ruthless people who cuts down anybody in their sight and doing criminal things and greedy and all this sort of stuff. But it's not true. I've met many wealthy people who are very generous. They're generous not only with the tax they pay, but they're generous with the time they give to charity, the money they give to charity, and they're usually nice people. Now, yeah, there are, at the very top, you have got ruthless billionaires, because some of them are just like that. They just want to get to the top at all costs. But in general, wealthy people, I've found in my experience, are usually nice people. And in fact, it's been talked about by T. Harv Eker in the Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, that he said the same thing, that you find that these people are not as bad as they are portrayed. They're normal people, they're wealthy people, but they're also nice and give back to society. And when I raise money through the Rotary Club, it's normally the wealthy and the busy and the successful people that seem to find the time to do things. Now you might go, of course that's easy when you've got money, but no, it's not easy. When you're running the business, when I was running the business, working 6 and 7 days a week, it was very hard to find the time. But it's funny, those people who are busy and those people who are working hard and doing the most seem to find the time to turn up for an event like on Saturday. We had a quiz night. They're the ones who turn up for the event, and they bring a few friends along. They contribute, they participate. And it's the people that doing nothing all day and sitting home watching TV and say, well, I haven't got the time to do that. I haven't got the time to go to these events. Well, why not? And they're the same people who haven't got time to clear up their front garden and wash their cars and keep their house clean. No, I haven't got time. I'm unemployed. I haven't got time. So just try to have that mindset and not, think badly about people who are successful, because then how can you be successful if your mind is full of jealousy and envy and hate towards the successful people? So thanks for listening, and thanks for those people who tuned in on Facebook Live. Great to see you. Anthony there, Tracy there, thanks for tuning in, and I will speak to you again. So bye for now. This has been Charles Kelly bringing you money tips to help you save, earn, invest, accumulate and enjoy more money.